It began 8 years ago. Since then, Russia has illegally occupied Crimea and unleashed a hybrid war in Ukraine's Donbas region. Crimea is now a territory of fear. The persecution of Crimean citizens is commonplace, as are human rights abuses. Russia continues its militarization of the Black and Azov Seas. Ukraine is consolidating international support to counter Russian aggression. Together with our partners, we are creating a new framework for regional and global security. The launch of the Crimea platform has been a major milestone. We have united 46 countries and international organizations. The deoccupation of Crimea now sits at the top of the international agenda. Today, the situation is still tense. Since spring 2021, Russia has significantly increased pressure on Ukraine and the war in Europe by a continued build-up of a large military force at our borders. In response, Ukraine has rallied a global coalition. Together, we are adopting 3 key strategies to counter Russian aggression. The first is proactive diplomacy. Kyiv is now at the center of
this
international
is what the Kremlin's
politics.
policies
The second
mean in practice.
is a package of severe economic sanctions.
To instill fear
This will ensure that
and
Russia
call it
pays the highest
security
price
demands,
if it resorts to
to
further
deny
aggression.
44 million
The third
Ukrainians
is military
from
support.
deciding freely
Ukraine has already received more
about
than 2,000
their
tons
own
of defensive
future.
weapons, equipment,
to deny
and
a free
ammunition.
country's right
I am confident that by
to
standing together with
independence
our
and
international
self-determination.
partners, we can stop
and the
Russia.
consequences of this approach
After all,
matter well
stopping
beyond
Russian
Ukraine.
aggression and restoring
The
Ukraine's
Kremlin is not
territorial
only trying
integrity
to
is the
undermine
only
the
way
entire
to restore
European security
in Europe.
architecture,
Stand
the Helsinki
with
As we have said all
principles
along,
that have
there is
made
a
all
playbook
European countries
of Russian aggression. And this playbook is too familiar to us all. Russia will plead ignorance and innocence. It will create false pretext for invasion, and it will amass troops and firepower in plain sight. We now receive reports of what appears to be provocations, and we see Russia
I want everyone in Lithuania,
disinformation, lies,
Estonia,
and propaganda.
and Latvia to know,
Their
and I want
actions
President Putin and
simply
the
do
Kremlin to
not
know
match their
that
words.
the United States of America stands
And
with our
let me be
allies.
clear,
But
I
conflict
can
is
say
not
with
inevitable.
absolute certainty,
Mr. Putin can choose
if
a
Russia
different path.
further invades Ukraine,
The United States,
the United
in
States,
lockstep with
together
our
with our
allies
allies
and
and
partners, have offered him
will
an opportunity to
Ukraine is
pursue a
significant,
diplomatic
the
solution.
shock
and
will echo
We hope that he
around the
takes
world. And those echoes will be heard in East Asia, they will be heard in Taiwan. When I spoke to the Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia this week, they left me in no doubt that the economic and political shocks will be felt on the far side of the world. So let me be clear about the risk. The risk now is that people would draw the conclusion that aggression pays and that might is right. If Ukraine is invaded, the shock will echo around the world. And those echoes will be heard in East Asia, they will be heard in Taiwan. When I spoke to the Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia this week, they left me in no doubt that the economic and political shocks will be felt on the far side of the world. So
we should understand that the world has changed with the 90s.
Risk now is that people
to make it
would
clear,
draw the conclusion that
there are
aggression
only
pays
capitalist countries on the
and that
globe,
might
but not
is
Korea.
right.
And if you see it like this, the difference between the states is about autocracy, about the way how we rule our countries, about democracy, but not about the way of how we do capitalism. Yes, there are different ways, even within but in Europe and in North America. But it is in the end not that we are in a situation similar to that that happened since after the Bolshevist revolution.
If Russia decides to invade, that would also have consequences here at home. But the American people understand that defending democracy and liberty is never without cost. This is a cause that unites Republicans and Democrats. And I want to thank the leaders and members of Congress of both parties who've forcefully spoken out in defense of our most basic, most bipartisan, most American principles. I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices. So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and servicemen to fight in Ukraine. We have supplied the Ukrainian military with equipment to help them defend themselves. We provided training and advice and intelligence for the same purpose. And make no mistake, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. An attack against one NATO country is an attack against all of us. And the United States' commitment to Article 5 is sacrosanct. Already, in response to Russia's buildup of troops, I've sent additional U.S. forces to bolster NATO's eastern flank.
Since then, Russia
Several
has
of our
illegally
allies have
occupied
also announced they'll add
and
forces and capabilities to ensure deterrence in the
region. Crimea is now a territory of fear. The persecution of Crimean citizens is commonplace, as are human rights abuses.
Я регистрации не допустить того, что было в 2014-м. Только вот в сентябре закончил контракт, здесь был у вас. И пришлось опять. И всем остальным говорю, мужики, не бойтесь, становитесь на защите Родины. А они мимо нас не пойдут все равно. Не дадим назад пути.
В 2014-м был здесь, видел весь этот сырбор. Порвем их, если еще придут. Вот и все.
На работу пришла повестка. Военкомат пришел, я оказался тут.
С работы можете оказаться?
Ну, еще несколько человек.
Ну, так, осознание внутреннее. Вот, скажем так, самостоятельно пришел, да? Вызывали, приводили насильно?
Ну, не насильно приводили, конечно. Сам.
Ну, готов?
Не знаю.
But there was a quid pro quo that NATO would not move 1 inch to the east. That was the phrase that was used in the interchanges, meaning to East Germany. And on that condition, they went forward. NATO immediately moved to East Germany. When Gorbachev vigorously protested, naturally, he was informed by the United States that it was only a verbal commitment. It wasn't on paper. The unstated implication is if you're naive enough to think you can make a gentleman's agreement with us, it's your problem. They didn't say that. I'm saying that. But the NATO...
Боевая тревога. Ракетное оружие в бой. Цель надводная номер 1. Групповая корабельно-ударная группа противника. Зон включен, начальные параметры введены. Готов к режиму ввода. Вероятность накрытия единицы.
Military parade in Estonia, a couple hundred yards from the Russian border. Russia is surrounded by U.S. Offensive weapons. Sometimes they're called defense, but they're all offensive weapons. And the idea that the new government in Ukraine that took over after the former government was overthrown, last December, late December, it passed a resolution overwhelmingly, I think something like 308 or something, announcing its intention to take steps to join NATO. For No Russian leader, no matter who it is, could tolerate Ukraine right at the geostrategic center of Russian concerns joining a hostile military alliance. I mean, we can imagine, for example, how the U.S. would have reacted, say, during the Cold War if the Warsaw Pact had extended to Latin America and Mexico and Canada were now planning to join the Warsaw Pact. Of course, that's academic, because the first step would have led to a violent U.S. response and wouldn't have gone any further.
Nuclear ballistic drills have been underway. Let's show you the very latest pictures. These have been released by the Russian Defense Ministry in the last hour.
Сегодня под вашим руководством проводится учение стратегического сдерживания, на котором будут отработаны вопросы управления ядерным оружием и оружием повышенной потенциальной опасности в едином контуре управления в ходе проведения операций стратегических наступательных сил. К учению привлекаются силы и средства воздушно-космических сил Южного военного округа, ракетных войск стратегического назначения, Северного и Черноморского флотов будут продемонстрированы пуски гиперзвуковых аэробаллистических ракет авиационного ракетного комплекса «Кинжал» и противокорабельных гиперзвуковых крылатых ракет «Циркон». Порядок проведения учений доложит начальник генерального штаба генерал армии Герасимов.
Товарищ Верховный Главнокомандующий, основная цель проводимого учения – отработка действий стратегических наступательных сил по нанесению гарантированного поражения противника. Учение проводится в два этапа. На первом этапе будет отработан вопрос ведения военных действий с применением оружия повышенной потенциальной опасности. И на втором этапе вопрос санкционирования и массированного применения стратегических наступательных сил Российской Федерации в ответ на встречном ударе.
Уважаемые жители Донецкой Народной Республики, идут масштабные обстрелы Украины и территорий Донецкой и Луганской народных республик. Только за последние дни силами нашей армии предотвращены несколько попыток терактов со стороны украинских спецслужб. Вооруженные формирования Украины обстреливают Зайцево, Гольмовский, Горловку, Веселое, поселок Шахты Трудовская, Старомихайловку, Еленовку, Сигнальная, Октябрь, Петровская, Новолазку, Коминтерново, Саханку. По нам бьют минометами, гранатометами, противотанковыми ракетными комплексами, крупнокалиберными пулеметами, стрелковым оружием, ствольной артиллерией, стреляют из танков. Народная милиция сдерживает противника ответным огнем. 18 февраля начался централизованный выезд гражданского населения республики в Российскую Федерацию. Уже вечером этого дня первые автобусы с жителями ДНР прибыли в Ростовскую область. Народная милиция, МЧС, МВД, экстренные службы готовы дать отпор Украине. По какому бы сценарию ни развивались события, мы сможем сдержать агрессию Киева. Мы должны объединить все усилия. Призываю земляков, пребывающих в запасе, прибыть в военные комиссариаты. Сегодня мной подписан указ о всеобщей мобилизации. Обращаюсь ко всем мужчинам республики, способным держать в руках оружие. Встать на защиту своих семей, своих детей, жен, матерей. Совместными усилиями мы добьемся желанной и необходимой нам всем победы. Мы защитим
Уважаемые
Донбасс
жители
и
республики,
русских людей.
Товарищи, друзья, вопреки здравому смыслу и международным договоренностям, противник продолжает сосредотачивать живую силу и тяжелую технику вдоль всей линии боевого соприкосновения. На текущий момент противником уже сформирована внушительная ударная группировка. По данным разведки, украинский агрессор планирует осуществить не только провокации на линии боевого соприкосновения, но организовать глубокий прорыв вглубь территории нашей республики. Мы готовы защищать свои семьи, свои дома, свою землю. Все необходимые распоряжения народной милиции ЛНР, правоохранительным органам республики.